It is February 16th, 1985. The WBA lightweight title is on the line at the Lawler Event Center in Reno, Nevada. The current champion, Livingston Bramble, is looking to defend his title for the first time against former champion Ray Boom Boom Mancini. As fans packed into the venue, there was a feeling that there was something special about that night. And boy, did that fight live up to the hype.
Another right scored by Mancini. That brings the crowd alive. Final seconds, a good left by Bramble. Mancini firing away. The fight comes to a close. In the center.
After 15 rounds of war, Bramble won the fight and retained the title via unanimous decision. While Bramble Mancini 2 was one of the all-time great lightweight title bouts, it wasn't just the fight itself that was historic, but rather the technology that was introduced to boxing for the very first time. It was on this Saturday night in 1985 when one of the most influential innovations in boxing was first introduced to the public sphere. Dubbed CompuBox, this new technology gave fans a new way of understanding the sport of boxing.
CompuBox is a computer program that counts and categorizes punches thrown in a boxing match. Pretty simple. It's jabs, power punches, which gives you total punches and percentages. And from there, you know, it's determined how many punches a fighter is throwing, landing in a fight, in a round. And that's pretty much it's a pretty simple program, but it's effective.
CompuBox started as a vision shared by Bob Canobbio and Logan Hobson, who were co-workers at Sports Illustrated. With both of them sharing a love for boxing, the inspiration for the program came in a way that you wouldn't expect.
I was working as a boxing editor, and someone came in to the office with a program written on this portable computer for tennis. He had gone to the US Open and created more or less a box score for tennis. So I'm sitting there with my partner at the time, my coworker at the time, my future partner, and we said, maybe we can develop this for boxing.
And just like that, the company was born. After creating the program, the concept was pitched to HBO's Ross Greenberg, who would become the president of HBO Sports years later. Like Bob and Logan, Ross saw the need for the program.
The coverage of boxing was pretty primitive back then. It was just, there were no graphics to speak of. Some fights, they would put up a tail of the tape, which is a fighter's age, his date of birth, his record, knockout percentage, basic stats. So we figured that, there was a need for stats for boxing. Instead of an announcer saying, wow, he's using his jab effectively in this fight, or he's not throwing enough punches, why not back it up with hard physical numbers? Yes, he's throwing, 20 jabs around. He's landing 40% of his power punches. We just thought that there was a need for more stats in boxing because it was basically really nothing at the time.
With Greenberg on board, Bob and Logan successfully did their first show at Bramble Mancini 2. Ever since that fight over 36 years ago, CompuBox has continued to work with HBO and soon expanded to cover boxing broadcasts on other networks as well. However, despite its rise in prominence in the boxing world, the company faced backlash early on.
The challenge was really gaining acceptance with the sport, because boxing, I don't know how much you follow it, but everybody in boxing is an expert. They know everything. They've seen it all. And this was back in the 80s, mid 80s, when there were a lot of famous Hall of Fame trainers around, managers around, and who were not familiar with computers. I mean, here now you got these two guys coming in with a computer telling you how many punches your fighter's throwing, or how many punches your fighter's getting hit with. So some guys were a little skeptical that you're not telling me something I can't see with my own eyes.
After the initial pushback, CompuBox gained acceptance over time in the boxing world, as it became clear that the accuracy of these statistics could not be ignored. In Bob's eyes, it is this reliability of their data that has not only led to their acceptance, but also added to the longevity of his New York-based company.
I think that's also added to our credibility, to our popularity. So yes, we're not officially scoring the fight, but when there's a bad decision, you always hear, I mean, let's go, what does CompuBox have? Let's look at the CompuBox stats, because over the years, they've been accurate. And that's another thing too, I should add. The reason I think that we've had the longevity is we're only watching one fighter each. The judges are watching both fighters, which is difficult. Our guys are only watching one fighter and counting. So it's sort of an advantage, you know, a better way to look at a fight where you're only focused on one fighter. Okay, we're not telling you how hard the punches are landing, but we're only focused on one fighter. And I think that's added to our credibility over the years.
Today, CompuBox provides real-time statistics for over 100 boxing shows per year, with their current clients including Showtime, ESPN, Fox, and other networks. Even with the rapid change in technology over the last few decades, the program has stayed relatively the same, with a few enhancements such as counting of body shots, minute-by-minute punch counts, and other more specific statistics as well. While all these improvements have made CompuBox a better program, there is still one statistic that Bob believes his program is missing.
The missing link for the program has always been how hard a punch lands. We can tell you how many and what kind. The missing link has been how hard is the punch. But unfortunately, it's been an issue trying to get this technology to work. They wanted to put, was working with a company for a while who was trying to put a sensor in the glove, like in the knuckle part of the glove, to tell you the impact. And they received too much resistance from all the glove companies. There's got to be 6 or 7 different manufacturers of gloves. So they'd all have to be on board. Fighters like a certain kind of glove. The technology has to work at a venue. Some venues, it's internet based, like everything else today, depending on the internet. It's internet based, so you have to have good internet in the building, in the venue where you're at, for the technology to work. So yeah, I would love to expand and tell you how hard a punch is being thrown, but it looks like the technology and the resistance with the fighters and the gloves, it's going to make it difficult, but it's still on our radar. Hopefully somebody will come along with some 12-year-old kid sitting in his basement right now is going to maybe come along with the good right technology, and we'll be able to tell you how hard a punch is being thrown.
As of now, there is no feasible way to track power punches, but that hasn't stopped CompuBox from continuing to adapt their program. Using all of the data they have collected over the years, CompuBox has created a huge database which houses all of their statistics from over 10,000 fights, while also providing rankings of past and current categorical leaders. With this data and statistics being at the foundation of CompuBox, it isn't all that the company does today.
CBS, I learned how to put together a live-to-tape show, like a show that isn't exactly live, but it seems like it's live on TV.
Dan Canobbio is one of the 5 children that Bob and his wife Seal have. Dan is the host of the show Inside Boxing Live, which is a part of CompuBox through CompuBox TV. After working at MLB Network and CBS, Dan decided that he wanted to create his own show.
Said one day, I was just like, I'm tired of being behind the camera. I want to be in front of the camera. And so I just literally started my own show. Like, I was lucky enough to have, my brother wanted to be involved on the background. He wanted to be, he always was good with sound and equipment and stuff. I'm not good at that stuff. So one day I was like, I'm going to be on camera, and I started my own show. And that's the hardest part, is kind of just taking that leap and just going for it, but also just going full bore. Every week you have to put out content, and it was a leap of faith, and I've been doing it for like 4 or 5 years now, and it took a long time to gain some traction. You got to just stay consistent with it, but that's pretty much how I started off with my show.
With the help of his brother Nick Canobbio, they both produced a show that covers the current state of boxing through interviews with some of the biggest names in the sport. For Dan, this was something that he always knew that he wanted to do.
Boxing was always like the family business, but I always loved it too. Like, I have a real soft spot for the sport, and it means more to me than probably the next fan out there or media member, because it's just like my life since I was a kid. So I kind of always knew I'd come back to boxing, and it's a good sport to have a podcast around, because there's always so much to talk about. Like, the fights are only once a week. It's unlike baseball or basketball, where there's just every day there's a game, and it's hard. There's a lot to talk about. So I always knew I'd eventually get back into boxing, and then I did in 2017.
Since the show first launched 4 years ago, Inside Boxing Live has steadily gained popularity and has become a big part of the CompuBox brand. Even with the show's success, both brothers also serve as a crucial part of the day-to-day at CompuBox as well.
Nick is the vice president of operations. He'll run, he's like the support. If we have an issue with the program, if we want to make an improvement to the program, Nick will be in touch with our programmer to to make those changes and make those enhancements, whatever it may be. Nick was also a main punch counter. Dan was the same way. Dan came along a little bit later. He started training. He's also one of the main punch counters, but Dan is also, as you mentioned, the face of CompuBox, if you will. We have a weekly show called Inside Boxing Live that Dan hosts, and we've gotten great guests on the show. He's doing a great job with it, and Nick is actually the producer of the show. So it's a family affair.
With Nick and Dan playing such a key role in CompuBox today, Bob believes that it was something that was always meant to be.
When I was home, I wanted to be, a hands-on kind of dad. So I wanted to introduce them, let them know what the kind of work that I do, what I'm involved in. And then as they got older, they started coming to the fights. They wanted to get involved. Great. I wasn't going to force them to do it. You're going to run the family business. I don't think you could put that kind of pressure on a young person, but they slowly, found their way into the business. And like I said, now they're both, an integral part of the day-to-day operation, really.
Through the hard work of Bob, Nick, Dan, and everyone involved in CompuBox, the company has remained at the top of the boxing world for the last 36 years and has no signs of slowing down. Their work has recently been recognized by the Boxing Writers Association of America, as Bob Canobbio was awarded the 2019 Barney Nagler Long and Meritorious Service Award for the work that he has done over the years in the sport. So, next time you tune in to watch a Showtime Championship boxing event or Boxing on Fox, just know the dedication from the family behind the statistics that has given boxing fans the true story of the fights for nearly 4 decades.